Boomer shooters, a genre quickly becoming more and more popular in recent years, made to take inspiration from retro classics such as Doom, Wolfenstein or System Shock, with heavy influence on the retro, often dirty and grim stylized art style, with aspects being intentionally left unpolished or cubic to stay faithful to the source inspiration. And I'm here to answer one very simple little question. Why? Why are people opting to play these retro, stylized games mimicking an era over 30 years in the past when all of these other beautiful, modern, aesthetically pleasing titles exist with polished systems and graphics made with tools the devs of the original Doom and Wolfenstein have only dreamed of having at their disposal? And I think the answer is pretty simple, to be honest. They're fun. Boomer shooters are a genre that strives to keep fun as the core focus of gameplay, often removing a lot of the fluff and long drawn out aspects from modern gaming, such as slow animations to climb or pick up loot, or making the lore and storytelling optional. Not to take away from the gameplay itself, but instead provide it as an option for those who are interested in the build up universe. But that doesn't mean the lore for games in this genre is lacking in comparison to others. No. Boomer shooters have some of the most unique and just downright badass plots I have ever been blessed to witness. Take the game ULTRAKILL as an example, probably one of the most notable boomer shooters out there that I'm sure a lot of you watching this already know about or have at least heard us mention through the popular game grapevine, but the lore is as follows.
Humanity, trapped in a century-long era of trench warfare with no end in sight, began developing robots fueled by blood as the ultimate war machines. The first of their kind, tagged by the name Guttermen, were developed, made to efficiently clear trenches with ease, killing any and all life forms within. The opposing parties were forced to retaliate, developing their own robots to fight against the Guttermen and spawning a new era of advanced warfare. Each side in competition, fighting to create the best and most advanced robots possible, a never-ending cycle of retaliation sowing the seeds for technological advancement. The Gutter Tank, the Sentries, the Sword Machines, and at last the Earth Mover, able to flatten entire cities in just one step. The world, however, began to suffer. The overconsumption of material and smoke produced by the robots forced humanity to seek refuge on the backs of the Earth Movers, their final resort. With the Earth almost uninhabitable, they had no other choice but to call for peace. Humanity banded together, repurposing the blood-fueled killing machines as cleaners, in an attempt to cleanse the climate and make the Earth inhabitable once again. Without any war to fuel the blood-hungry robots, humanity looked elsewhere, searching for new solutions to keep the now machine-reliant humanity alive. Hidden within a remote mining complex, a group of miners discover a mysterious gateway seemingly leading to another world. An overwhelming smell of rotten meat oozed from the portal as they peered into the cavern full of vile, almost sentient flesh and blood. Lots and lots of blood. Hailed as a solution to the robot problem, scientists quickly began to study, heading further and further into this hellish gateway. Strange things began to occur the deeper they go. Scientists would report machinery missing or doors closing on their own, with several of them claiming that this hellish landscape was sentient, messing with them just for its own enjoyment. People began to go missing, stepping into hell one by one, only to never be seen again. The study was considered too risky to continue and was called off. However, it was too late. Something, whatever it was unleashed, and humanity was about to suffer once again. And just like that, humanity was extinct, perhaps caused by these trips into the depths of hell, the blood-fueled robots being starved, or maybe some other unknown reason, as no information was left behind detailing anything that had happened to humanity. All that remains are the machines built for war, their desperation growing as they turn to the hellish gateway in search for more blood to consume for fuel.
And that's where the game begins. You're a robot in hell fueled by blood, slaughtering anything and everything you see to fuel your own engines. It's just badass in every sense of the word and really sets the atmosphere for what the game is really about, how it's gonna play out, and how badass you're gonna feel in this environment. Or another example being Postal Brain Damaged. Being a boomer shooter spin-off of the controversial and outright banned Postal series, which I'm sure just like ULTRAKILL needs no introduction.
Tonight from the night team. the new game that encourages kids to kill priests and blow up animals. The 19 with the controversy over this vicious video game. Plus, busted for soliciting sex from a 14-year-old.
The game itself is a bit more of a lighter comedic take on the series, with it taking place in the mind of Postal Dude, the main character from the Postal series, where you navigate and descend deep into his twisted web of dreams, through asylums and prisons, happy-go-lucky neighborhoods, war-torn deserts, and whatever else is going on in this man's wild mind, just ignoring any sense of realism and using this dude's fucked up brain as a canvas to paint the most insane but creative levels you can think of, and taking you on a mental trip as you play. And I don't want to speak for the entire genre as a whole here, but from the games I've played and experienced, I feel as though this retro style and focus on fun and action allows for such a blank creative canvas, allowing for the most outlandish and creative ideas without the restriction on gameplay that modern games seem to have. Everything just feels unlocked and free, and in often case with the only real restriction being the creativity of the devs themselves. And this level of creativity ascends past pure visuals and plot and leaches into the weapons and movement mechanics of the games as well. A common component in the boomer shooter genre is fast-paced non-stop action with smooth, snappy movement and an arsenal of weapons more extensive than Rambo himself. This genre takes the Second Amendment and makes it the entire constitution. You've got pistols, rifles, miniguns, rocket launchers, nail guns, boomerangs, a hand that shoots knives, a gun that shoots chainsaws, an axe that spins like a Beyblade, and a bow that shoots, well, yeah, we won't talk about that one. And along with the staple in every good boomer shooter, a shotgun. If you can think of it, then there's probably a boomer shooter out there with it. There's just no limit, and all of these unique weapons and spins on pre-existing ones just add to this one-man army feeling you get while playing a game from this genre. Feeling like it's you versus the world, but you're somehow winning out of pure strength and the ability to be the most badass, well-equipped man alive. And a lot of these weapons have mechanics or systems within the game itself that give you an even greater sense of badassness. Take the game Dread Templar as an example. The game is very faithful in design to older boomer shooters, having not much verticality for you to do badass flips and tricks like an ULTRAKILL, and not a lot of insanely out there weapons either. You've got dual katanas, some pistols, a couple shotguns, a bow, and some Hellfire variants of those, and that's really about it. It's all very traditional and very standard. However, what Dread Templar does is throw some tasty little mechanics on top of these, give it a little stir, and make some fresh boomer shooter stew. The game gives you a much needed dash to weave in and out of combat, a bullet time mode where you can slow everything down like Neo from the Matrix to help reposition and pick off some more annoying enemies, or the ability to combine your katanas together like Darth Maul and throw them javelin style, which returns to you on a cooldown. Or this precise cooldown for your bow to promote variety in what weapons you use, and finally my personal favorite, weapon animation cancelling. If you swap weapons while mid-animation, such as having to pump a shotgun, you can cut a lot of your downtime out of the combat and turn yourself into a human minigun shooting shotgun rounds, bursting down target after target in the most badass and satisfying way possible. And after learning and mastering all of the mechanics I just mentioned, the game quickly becomes less and less simple and the skill setting grows higher and higher, all without forcing none of it upon you. You can choose to play the game in the simplest of ways, ignoring all of the mechanics and just involving yourself in the story and core game, or you can try and min-max every aspect of gameplay and turn yourself into this powerhouse of a man. It just feels so unlocked and free, and I think this is a common theme in the genre too. A lot of games give you this vast array of tools to use at your disposal and pick from, letting you freely pick what guns you want to use and what ones you don't, or what your playstyle might be, or how tryhard or flashy you want to be without forcing any of it on you. And they also choose to not really assist you much either. There's rarely a tutorial teaching you about something like animation cancelling or how to chain certain things together. They just allow you to discover it at your own pace, which leaves this very satisfying feeling when you do that I feel like you don't really get with a lot of other genres. Especially in modern AAA games, I feel as though there's this weird desire to over-explain everything and make sure everything gets used. If there's a mechanic, then there has to be a tutorial to teach it, and if said mechanic exists, then there has to be a system to make use of it, forcing you to use it rather than giving you the option of freedom. I know I've touched on it briefly already, but another very core component that builds on this idea of freedom within boomer shooters is the movement. Typical movement mechanics in the boomer shooter genre are best described in 3 words: freeing, fast, and fettuccine. Yeah, that's right, fettuccine. Growing up, all I ever really had was spaghetti, and you know, spaghetti, it's good, solid pasta, but when you try fettuccine for the first time, goddamn, it just hits different in its thick, flat, flavorful goodness. And once you've had fettuccine for the first time, every time you have spaghetti after that, you're just going to be wishing it was fettuccine instead. And in the gaming world, modern AAA games are the spaghetti of this analogy. Whenever you try to do absolutely anything in a AAA title, it's just lengthy animation after lengthy animation. You see that building up there? Sure, you can climb it, but you're gonna have to hold up on your controller for 20 seconds and watch an animation instead of feeling any kind of involvement in what's happening on the screen. Oh, there's a knee-high wall in front of you? Here's a 5-second animation showing you climbing over that wall instead of allowing you to freely leap over it. Oh what, you're about to kill the main villain of the entire game with a badass leap of faith? Here's a cutscene for that too. Half the time it just feels like I'm watching an interactive movie rather than playing a game. Not to mention some of the choices in regards to character speed. There has been so many AAA titles where the entire time I'm just wishing my character was just that little bit faster while running from point A to B to speed it up a bit or to make the game feel more action-packed and not as much of a drag. But instead games choose to stay realistic in movement and restrict your speed to a leisurely stroll while at the same time choosing to include things like laser rifles or dual-wielding battle axes. If you're going for pure realism, I get it, but you have to choose one and not both, and you have to think about player experience because in the end, I'm playing your game to escape reality and have fun. I'm playing to feel badass and envelop myself in this world. I'm playing to be someone I'm not, and to me personally, I think once you let the attachment to realism go and begin adding and altering stuff for the goal of making it fun and enjoyable rather than for it to be realistic, then that's when I feel the most free and immersed in a game. And now on the other hand, you have my beautiful boomer shooter fettuccine. With every single boomer shooter I've played so far having such an emphasis on speed and movement without any restrictive animations making you feel locked in or on rails. I'm going to use the game Lorn's lore as an example for what I mean. Although not technically a boomer shooter because, well, you don't really have a gun to shoot with, I still think it does a good job at displaying how free and good movement mechanics can be in a boomer shooter style game, and I think it's faithful enough to include in this video. I also think it's such a hidden gem that everyone should play and experience, but I'll touch on that more in my next video. The game itself is an atmospheric first-person platformer with a high emphasis on exploration and in a way puzzle solving as you figure out how to get from point A to B while utilizing all of your tools at your disposal to effectively achieve that. With a trusty climb and pick in either hand, you can climb absolutely any surface you see. You also have access to wall jumps, air dashes, and even a grapple hook in some of the later levels that allow you to approach every obstacle in your own way without any real tutorial or guide telling you what to do or how to do it. The only thing the game does tell you is the rough direction you should be going, and the rest is up to you to figure out, and I think there's a lot of beauty in that. In games such as Assassin's Creed, I feel as though more often than not there's only one way to approach an obstacle. You either climb the designated path, jump on the predetermined window ledges, or hide in the magically convenient bush or barrel, and if you don't, then, well, good luck to you, Buster, you're not going to be able to play the rest of the game. It's either our way or no way. But as with here, or really any game in the genre, freedom is everything. There are so many ways to approach each obstacle with the tools to create even more than the devs even intended or thought about themselves, and if you fuck up and start accidentally climbing the wrong wall, well, you can just jump off at whatever point you like and onto a new wall. The game feels less like the on-the-rails movie a lot of AAA games are, and more of a sandbox for you to play around in and enjoy to your heart's content. Fettuccine over spaghetti. Another game I'd like to briefly mention too on the topic of movement, and is actually a boomer shooter this time, is Forgive Me Father. Inspired by Lovecraftian horror, this game has so much going for it in terms of style, skill trees, and weapons, but what it doesn't really have is much vertical movement at all. The game is very faithful in design, just like Dread Templar. You do have access to a jump, but not a very high one, and there's no real dashes or flashy mechanics in that regard either. But what it does do to prevent the same feeling of sluggish movement that I get from more mainstream games is simply just making your character fast, like abnormally fast, like Sonic just got a text from Amy Rose asking if he wants to hang out that night with the caption "be quick" kinda fast. It's such a simple fix that adds and changes so much, allowing you to rush from enemy to enemy and zone to zone and dodge projectiles with a lot more ease than you otherwise could with a more realistic speed. And just by adjusting that movement speed slider, you already feel a lot more free and badass than you otherwise would. Unrealistic? Sure, but fun without a doubt, and to me that's all that matters. And I mean, hell, if this isn't enough to convince you about the importance of freedom and speed and movement, then go watch literally any ULTRAKILL speedrun out there and compare it to any AAA title. I guarantee there'll be no contest in which one you think looks cooler and more fun to play. Another aspect I really enjoy about boomer shooters is there's no fear of things being too hard. As modern games have evolved, I feel as though the level of difficulty overall has gotten low, with games opting to cater to all and having bosses or levels be oversimplified or made easy to keep the player moving forward. And in a way, this is a good thing. Obviously, it can be very frustrating to be stuck on a boss or level for an extended period of time. However, I feel as though having it be too easy also loses a lot of gratification you get after finally beating that level you spent so much time stuck on, and loses a lot of the motivation to keep me wanting to play more. I know there's an audience out there for both styles of game, but for me personally, difficulty matters, and if there's no motivation to do better and no trial and error to achieve that, then I feel very lost and disencouraged to do more within the game. This is a big reason why games such as Elden Ring do so well, because they have that reputation for being hard and providing a challenge, and I think this is something that boomer shooters as a whole encapsulate quite well. And with the combination of both the advanced movement mechanics and arsenal of weapons leading to this very satisfying, intense payoff after you finally overcome that challenge and progress deeper into the game. And finally, we gotta talk about the graphics here. Now, I know it's not everyone's taste, because the reality is, why would you pick this over that, you know? Why would you eat raw cheese when you could make it into fondue instead? But although in most cases AAA graphics are objectively better, I think more modernized art styles often feel voided of a lot of the charm that older games seem to have, and I want to use the game Dusk as an example of this. From the very moment you open the game, it feels like you straight up got teleported back to 1995. The game is dark and gory, the aesthetic is gloomy and rough, and the textures are pixelated, but yet still so very detailed, and although by no means realistic, you can't help but feel immersed within the game because of this, and with the unpolished graphics making you feel as though anything can happen, that all the rules and systems you know about modern games might not apply here. It feels underground and so raw and empty, but in a very immersive way. And the best way I can describe this sort of aesthetic for a game is that it's if you're playing a game you shouldn't. It feels cursed and forbidden, which I think is what leads to a level of immersion that I don't quite get with modern games. As graphics have improved in gaming, it feels as though nothing can be rough, it all has to be smooth and refined, the lighting has to be perfect, and the textures have to breathe realism, but because of that, to me it all feels like the opposite. It makes everything feel bland and uniform, it makes everything feel mundane and uninspired, and most importantly, not very immersive. It just all feels very surface level and to be taken at face value. And I'd like to argue that some of these more gritty boomer shooters like Dusk have found a way to ascend that and provide the feeling as if you just stumbled upon some mysterious unknown game at some thrift store, one that's probably banned in over 30 countries, one that's gonna Jumanji your ass and teleport you straight into the game the moment you boot it up and force you to battle in this hellscape to find a way home, and that eerie feeling has immersed me in far more games than any modernized game has and left me fiending to play more and always coming back. So to get back on track and answer the original question of why are boomer shooters doing so well while many AAA titles fail? Why are companies such as New Blood Interactive thriving while companies like Ubisoft are on the verge of imploding? Why would I rather play these than any of those? And to put it simply, I think that games have lost a lot of their charm as the AAA industry has evolved. It's become a race for more realistic graphics and gameplay mechanics to extract all the essence of fun out of the product, putting me on rails at every single turn of the game, making sure that I'm experiencing the product the devs orchestrated instead of allowing me, the player, to experience it in my own way. And you could argue that some of this comes from these games being a far more polished and refined product compared to these indie boomer shooters, but then you look at games like Star Wars Outlaws, Battlefield 2042, or Starfield that release riddled with bugs and is an unplayable mess. Boomer shooters are a faithful genre of games that focus on fun, action, and speed over everything. A genre that makes you feel more badass and more unhinged than I've ever felt before, and even though these games lack any sort of realism you might get from modern AAA games, I have never felt more immersed in a game than I have in a boomer shooter, simply because I'm free to think and explore without the slush of cutscenes and filler animations getting in the way of the experience and escapism I want out of a game.
was a waste of 20 minutes. Boomer shooters? What even is that? Alright, let's see what else is on.
Easy.
League of Legends? Who even watches that crap?
Get the fuck out of here.
Does this guy even post anymore?
Hey, honey, come out here and help me with something real quick.
Yeah, sure, Ma. Just give me a minute. God damn, this guy has a magnificent beard.
This one's pretty good. Nice and straight, good thickness.
Man,
Should
I
make
wonder.
a solid new handle for the old chopper.
I wonder if I got any.
Ah, shit.
Got nothing. Whoa.
Yeah, that
I didn't expect to see that.
Well.
Come
Good as
on,
new.
it'll take 1
Alright, guys, that's it
second.
for this
God
one. I'll
damn
catch
it.
y'all on the
Fine,
next
Ma.
one.
I'm
Peace out.
coming. Jesus Christ.